Welcome, Hotshots, to Flashlight by Firepower X. Here you can find the industrial strength tools you need to dominate your personal and professional wellness as a firefighter. My name is Jess. I'm creator of Firepower X, former firefighter, and your host for today's webinar. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce today's guest, Deputy Chief Daniel Fuller of the Roswell Fire Department down in New Mexico. He's been in the fire service for 18 years with experience on both career and volunteer sides of the industry. And Chief Fuller has been a paramedic for 12 years, in addition to having earned his master's degree in public safety, leadership, and administration. He's also got 5 years at the desk administrative experience under his belt as well. So welcome, Chief Fuller. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Jess. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and you have really gotten a comprehensive look at the fire service, having floated around all these different roles. But let's add New Mexico into the mix. What is unique about New Mexico and your area from other areas of the country?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you're not wrong. I've come from the volunteer side and then transitioned to the career side, and so getting a fresh start on the serving because it's something we want to do, not something that pays the bills. That starts ignites a little different passion for it, and then transitioning over to the career side in southeastern New Mexico it's a different beast of its own. I come from Roswell. Roswell's a little isolated community, about 50,000 people here in southeastern New Mexico. We're kind of the hub. We are 170 miles away from any major city, Albuquerque, Lubbock, or El Paso, Texas. So kind of just in the middle. So that alone just brings its own fair share of challenges and makes us really think outside the box in terms of we're really one of the larger key players in the area and really no one else to rely on for help. We operate on our own and we got to figure it out. Survival of the fittest down here.
I was going to say, who do you call for mutual aid if you're...
Yeah, 30 miles away, maybe, but they're all smaller departments. And so for us, the bigger guys are much further away. We would be considered the bigger guys for other responding agencies around us, but we don't bring anybody in very often. It's too far of a drive. So.
And I know you've unfortunately had some recent flooding that really took out some apparatus and had some station damage. How do you serve when you're limited like that? When you're the ones experiencing the emergency, what did you guys find that really got you through?
Yeah, that's a great question. On October in 2024, middle of October, the city of Roswell experienced some catastrophic flooding. And by catastrophic, we're high desert. It does not rain here. On average, we're anywhere between 9 to 10 inches of rain throughout the year, or moisture throughout the year. And we got 10.5 inches of rain in 4 hours.
Wow.
And it worked its way right through the town. And so, as you can imagine, that leaves a impact on the fires, on the response models for not only just the fire department, but police department as well. And being, again, 3-4 hours away from mutual aid, we had to deal with that on our own. And in the process, we flooded some units. We lost 3 engines in a platform aerial, but we didn't lose them before those pieces of equipment were used to save lives. We touched, the best that we can calculate. It's so hard to keep track of that. MDTs were going down, computers were going down. We had no way to really track all of the saves, but there was 50 to 60 people that night alone that if Roswell Fire wouldn't have laid hands on, their story would be significantly different. So brings light to the fact that the fire department, Roswell, that night, the fire department was a beacon of hope in a really dark place. And so we just rode that momentum through, and here we are using and utilizing partner relationships. Albuquerque Fire has donated us a truck on loan, and we've been able to use some volunteer agencies around the area to help put our fleet back together. And as we've been able to do that, we've been able to run 911 calls in the meantime, and until we can get other units purchased and arrived, which if anyone's purchased a fire truck, it's not overnight.
No, it's not.
There's big wait times for those things, but we're making do with what we have. The name of the job is you have to you pivot, you have to adapt, and we've been pivoting and adapting quite often since October 2024, but we're on a good path for success. So.
Excellent. What was a surprising or creative pivot that you had to make in light of these recent events that maybe you weren't expecting?
One of those creative pivots is what do you do when you don't have an aerial unit whatsoever? We run a 6-station department, and so out of our 6 stations, we only have one aerial that responds 911 altogether. And so when we're trying to come up with a response plan that, we have ISO to meet and we have state regulations to meet and we want to meet NFPA standards. And when we're trying to do that, but we don't have the equipment
Mhm.
here, we're gonna start getting creative. And we have the strength of developing relationships with those around us has
Mhm.
you can't beat it. It was maybe underestimated in previous times for me,
Mhm.
figuring out how quick we can rely on those and lean on those, and the
Mhm.
importance of developing those relationships. Key to our success were those around us by far.
I immediately thought of like the electrical trucks from
Yeah,
is that kind of one of the creative ways? Were you able to get
yeah.
access to apparatus like that or?
So, creative way. We just unfortunately there was a season we just didn't have an aerial unit to use.
Okay.
Responding them out of engines and waiting to see what kind of mutual aid we would get. Currently, even the truck we're in currently is a rental truck. A lot
Oh,
of people
okay.
don't know you can rent fire trucks. And so developing a partnership with an
Hmm.
organization out of Texas to rent a unit, just
Hmm.
to have a truck in place.
Hmm.
So yeah, a lot of those things that people don't understand, you get in a wreck in your car, you can go get a rental car. Well, you
Hmm.
ruin some fire trucks, you can get some rental fire trucks too. They're
Good
just
to
a little
know.
bit, yeah, a little bit further of a drive away than your local Hertz or Enterprise, but
Mhm. Wow. Well, that I'm sure that was a real team building exercise for all of you as well, because when you get to kind of brainstorm together, did you find that to be true?
yeah, you work hand in hand with administration, but the flooding process alone was team building, and I think
Hmm.
as an organization, you find yourself curious of what can we accomplish
Hmm.
if it all hits the fan at one time. What are we capable of as an organization?
Hmm.
Um, so coming from Roswell, a dry climate community, we don't have rivers. The water does not flow through Roswell. And so we have
Hmm.
no training in water rescue. We have no expertise in that. And so even
Hmm.
from the get-go, starting night number one, realizing what our crews were capable of,
Hmm.
there's bonding that happens in adversity. And when you face adversity as a group of people, you get stronger because of it. There's a reason friends go run marathons together,
Yes.
because there's development that occurs in those times. And so
Hmm.
here we are faced with an awful situation, and the amount of bonding and the cohesion that happened because of it. Roswell Fire Department's a different place today
Hmm.
because of the events that happened that night. It's a stronger place, it's more resilient, and the friendships are even tighter uh,
Hmm.
because of the events in October.
That is great to hear. That I think with all of the things that are happening in our world right now, it's
Right.
easy to think like, oh, this is gonna knock me down a peg. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that with us. It's good to know that we can come back stronger and better and call the fire truck rental company when
Yeah. If you need them, they're there.
if we need them. Now, I know, offline we kind of talked about how important it was for you to build leaders, not just firefighters. So, can you talk about why that's important to you?
Yeah, every aspect of the fire service, we're not the Roswell Fire Department specifically, and me in particular, we're not looking just to build firemen. We can teach a lot of people to do a lot of things, but the most important thing that we can teach them to do is to lead. And I think as a fire chief, I think the best impact that you can have is developing leaders. So what does that, what does that look like?
Hmm.
We can train people to be firemen. We can train people to be EMTs and paramedics. Those are skills that we can teach. So, but how do we teach and influence the heart? How do we teach and influence the mind to make conscious decisions to be better people and to be better leaders? That's hard, but it's imperative.
Hmm.
I think the strongest firemen, lieutenants, drivers, chief officers, what have. They're the best leaders, not just in the walls of the firehouse, but outside of the walls of the firehouse.
Hmm.
We want to create good fathers. We want to create good husbands and wives and mothers, good brothers and sisters. And there's a lot of psychology when it comes to the details of how we do that. But guys and girls are going to perform at their highest level when the needs of when their home lives and the outside lives are when they're kept at a high level of excellence as well. And so
Hmm.
we want to develop. I think it's imperative that we develop that aspect of their life, even just as much as we do on the fire ground. It brings that much impact into the service as more so than probably just the physical training that we do. So I
Hmm.
consider it with equal importance.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the problems we are seeing in behavioral health with firefighters is that they're able to lead at work, but then we go home and suffer behind closed doors, and
Yeah.
we're not assuming that leadership when we have a personal challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, on that, we tend to know our place and we know our jobs better at work. And sometimes when we get home, whether that is with our significant other, with our spouse, whatever, so be it, with our kids, sometimes those lines are blurry and life is hard and family is hard. And working through those with in that setting is a little bit harder at work at the end of the day. And we rely on certain SOPs and those types of things that go off that mission statement, vision statements, those things that guide us at work. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people at home don't have those
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I personally do not have a rule of SOPs that I base my family, my marriage off of.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it a little bit harder, and the waters are a little bit muddied in terms of, hey, what is the best direction to go with, hey, with a difficulty that they're facing, whether that
Mm-hmm.
is with raising children or just in issues, well, in marriage in general. So it makes it difficult.
Mm-hmm. And what have you found? What helps you kind of guide you through
S-
difficult
a
things at home?
Yeah, for sure. So personally, I'm a man of faith. I
Mm-hmm.
take my faith seriously, and I believe the scripture is there for a reason, and that is it's a great guide for life in general, and it's full of a lot of wisdom and words of
Mm-hmm.
the Lord that help guide us. And so for me, my faith is big. But something, as a young firefighter and early married, um, we very easily had some marital issues. Shift schedule is not easy. Having a kid on shift schedule is not easy, and so
Yeah.
I honestly, I like to learn always, and so I'm a fan of podcasts. And here I am listening to a podcast one day, and this gentleman is talking about creating a vision statement for your family.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to go? And so I was like, man, it just it pricked my heart. And I was like, we got to do this. So I sat my
Mm-hmm.
wife down and said, hey, we got to come up with a vision statement. And
Mm-hmm.
so we did. And our vision statement consists of the core things that are important to our family. So if we're facing big decisions in life, or if we're facing some adversity in life, we can go back to that vision statement and say, what do we make? If we make that choice, does it align with the vision that we had for our family?
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, then we know we can make that decision confidently. And if it ends up being a bad decision, we did the best we could.
Yeah.
But if it does not align with our vision statement as a family, then it
Mm-hmm.
serves no purpose. So let's come up with a different idea or a different solution
Mm-hmm.
until we can get to that place. So we created a vision statement. We anchored it in scripture and things along the lines of open communication, things along the lines of we're going to host in our family. We're going to host people and do our best to pour the love of Jesus into them. We're going to do our best to be authentic and be real and not be fake. And those are, that's just a couple of them that we've chosen to live by. But we made a sign. We had it made on Etsy. It's stretched on canvas and it's
Oh,
displayed in our
nice.
living room.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so our kids get to see it, we get to see it, and it's easily referenced. So.
Mm-hmm. Are they old enough, your children, to understand what it means as well, or are they just getting used to it?
So Hallie, I have one son and one daughter. Hallie is
Mm-hmm.
6 and Jakin is 3, and
Mm-hmm.
so she is able to. We're able to start instilling that in her and understanding. And hey, oh Hallie, you have a tough decision to make tonight. You want to go to a birthday party or do you want to go to gymnastics? At that
Mm-hmm.
age, that's a really tough decision.
Mm-hmm.
We'll read off our vision statement, and then she gets to make her own decision based off what she feels is right. And so using
Mm-hmm.
that already at 6 years old to help her understand and communicate how she feels and what she wants to make her choice as. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, she can live with the consequences of either one, hurting a friend's feelings or, being let down because she didn't get to go to gymnastics. There's consequences either way, but at least she can make the decision. And
Mm-hmm.
Jakin, we're in the throes of it with him, and
Yeah.
we're lucky if we can get him to eat a chicken nugget. So that's just where we're at.
Thank you for the honesty. That's
It is true. Hey, I told you our vision statement is authenticity, and
yeah.
that is the truth. Uh, that is
Uh,
where we're at with him. So
yeah. Hey, there's stages. You're gonna look back one day and be like, oh, when he was 3, he was so adorable.
yeah, my kids are great, and I'm partial because they're my children, but they really are wonderful, and they make parenting easy. But
Mhm.
if our hardest situation is whether to get them eat a chicken nugget or not, we're doing okay. We're doing all right.
Yeah, the kids are all right. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, in terms of doing all things with excellence, I know that is also something I think a value you and I both share. what are the areas that you kind of go above and beyond that maybe people aren't expecting?
So doing all things with excellence in all fields, and what does that look like? So on the fire ground service, and this is what it's what we try to really base it off of. And in the service, we really try to do all things with excellence, because if not, it ends up with someone getting injured. And that's what we
Yeah.
don't want to do. Um, at home, all things with excellence, to include mowing my grass. Yeah, all things. I want my kids to look at me one day and say, "Hey, Dad really follows through on what he says, and when he does it well." And I want to live that way as a husband. I want to live that way as a chief fire officer, and those situations. And so those are things that I really take seriously. And so I'm talking about, what do we do with excellence? I'm talking about timekeeping. I'm talking about making sure we're going to our appointments on time, and seeing chiropractors and seeing our doctors. I'm talking about, if I can fire off an email, I want to make sure it looks professional and looks great. I want to put my best foot forward on all things. And that way, excellence in my life matters. I've learned in my life, I've paid more consequences in my life for trying to cut a corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Those cutting corners catch up to you. And
Mhm.
so if we can miss cutting the corners and just turn around and do all things with excellence the first time, we don't have to repeat. We don't have to make the mistakes. So
Do you feel a lot of stress because of that, having that value of excellence?
yeah, I think so. There's a fine line to balance there. Perfectionism versus an attitude of excellence. And so
Hmm.
I think you have to balance it carefully. I'm not perfect in everything I do. I know who I am, and I know very
Hmm.
well that I'm a human being. I'm
Hmm.
gonna make I'm gonna make mistakes. So I don't have this perfectionism mindset where it's got to be perfect, or else I'm gonna have a meltdown.
Hmm.
And sometimes there is pressure, because you know how much easier it would be to write off a quick email, or to make a quick phone call, and instead of doing, you can cut some corners. That's easier. And so sometimes the hard thing is to do is to chase it with excellence, whether that is developing a payroll system there at work. So I work overseeing payroll side of things. I could very easily cut some corners and say, oh well, that's scheduled. We have a redundant system where we can check and go forth. There was a time that I cut a corner and I did not go back and double check.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that consequence was I ended up having to tell guys, hey, you got paid too much money and you have to write a check back to the city.
Oh, whoops.
And so, yeah, so some of
Hmm.
those situations, I learned from. And uh,
Hmm.
it takes that pressure off once you face the consequences of not following through with excellence. The
Hmm.
pressure is not there, because it's just the standard. The
Yeah.
standard has to be excellence, and if you don't, I just don't want to face the consequences on the other side. So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And especially in our industry where,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
you don't want to lose anyone because you were.
Nope, especially if it's on your shoulders. And I don't want to be the reason somebody doesn't go. So
Hmm. Exactly. What do you say to firefighters who claim like they don't have time for excellence, like they got too much on their plate? They maybe they are a fellow father, mother, they've got on their 4 day, they're busy toting the kids around, and they may even have another gig on the side. What do you say to those folks who are like, I don't have time for this. It's
yeah,
for
no,
excellence.
yeah.
I just got to get it done, at the
That's
base
a
level.
great question. That's a great question. And so, there are those people who definitely are that way. We live by a motto in our house. It's based off scripture, but a tree is known by the fruit it produces.
Mm, mm-hmm,
And so I know an apple tree to be an apple tree because I can go pick an apple off of it.
mm-hmm,
And we had talked previously, we have pecans here in this area, and a pecan tree is known to be a pecan tree because it drops pecans.
mm-hmm,
And so I would challenge them with, all right, that's fine. But a tree is known by the fruit it produces. So what fruit are you producing?
mm-hmm.
Um, if
Yeah.
that's working and you're still able to produce a good fruit and that's working for you, then okay. But
Mm-hmm,
chances are, if excellence is not a priority in your life, the fruit you're producing it's probably not optimal. I would challenge them, like, look back in 10 years. If in 10 years you're going to be where you're going to be because of
mm-hmm.
choices you made, in
Yeah.
looking back, are you going to regret not doing things with excellence?
Yeah.
Majority of the time it's, yeah, I don't want to be in that position where I regret not doing X, Y, and Z. And
Mm-hmm,
so I would challenge them with, hey, let's look at the fruit you're producing now. Who do you see you to be? Who do others see you to be? And if those don't match up, then we need to look at some things and challenge some points of view. And it's all about time optimization. My personal belief, and this is just me, I try not to really push it on a lot of people. It's
Uh-huh.
just the way I live. Is the fire department's the fire department. It's going to run whether I'm working there or not.
Hmm.
Those wheels got to turn on calls. What
Hmm.
matters is my family, my
Hmm.
relationship with Christ,
Hmm.
and I want it when everyone's going to find that day where they retire. And I don't
Hmm.
want to look back like, oh man, I messed up being a father and a husband way more than I wish I would have. You don't have those relationships to fall on. And
Hmm.
so, prioritize your time. Work will be work, but take
Hmm.
the time to check out, to be there with your family, to do that with
Hmm.
excellence first. Because if you're doing that with excellence, that's just gonna follow through the rest of your life, and work's gonna follow there shortly after. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if people aren't choosing to live that way, everyone has a free will. Um,
Hmm.
but a tree's known by the fruit it produces, and there will be consequences if there's good consequences and bad consequences. And
That's true.
you have to deal with both. So it's a
Yeah.
balancing act.
It is. It is. I think in Western society, especially in our generations, there's this, it's very in vogue to be busy all the time, just
Hmm.
chronically busy. And it's almost a little bit renegade, Chief Fuller, to say, like, I'm going to slow down and be present with whatever I'm
Yeah.
doing. So do you find that in your fire department, are you able as a culture to kind of maintain that excellence, or do you find a lot of people kind of succumbing to the busyness syndrome?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, we're not southeastern New Mexico, Roswell Fire Department. We're not unique. We're not perfect, and we probably have equal balances of both of those. We have guys, just
Mhm.
like guys and gals, just like other places that they choose to run their own business outside the
Mhm.
fire department. They work other locations outside the fire department. A blessing of
Mhm.
the fire services. You have 4 days. We do a 48-96 schedule. They have
Mhm.
time and opportunity away from here to earn some extra income, and that's great, myself included. Even 8 to 5, I'm able to do online teaching and certain things through universities in the area. And so we
Mhm.
all like to earn a little extra cash. It helps take the family on vacations, and
Mhm.
it's those things are really great.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's important in our lives to have margin.
Mhm.
You cannot be, we claim as a fire service, like, oh, we got to be there for our brothers and sisters, like we
Mhm.
got their back. Well, you can't
Mhm.
have their back if you don't have enough time to have their back. And so creating the margin to make a difference in someone else's life, creating the margin to make a difference in your own life, we
Mhm.
have to be able to lay our head down at night and have an empty brain space to say, just to take a breath and get away from the busyness of life, and
Mhm.
the having the openness and having the ability to step away gives us the
Mhm.
ability to fill it with stuff that may be a little bit more proactive.
Mhm.
Hey, your friend calls, hey man, I'm in a deep place. I need some help. You have margin in your life then to step in and to help. And so uh,
Yeah.
we tend to be a lot of people tend to be pretty busy, especially while
Mhm.
you're on shift. You do pull multiple jobs, but
Mhm.
it's imperative, I think, for fire officers, for chief officers, to really have the ability to have some margin in their life to say, I'm going to be available
Mhm.
XYZ in case someone needs me. This doesn't mean even 8 to 5. Be available 8 to 5, yes, but uh, the
Mhm.
phone rings on the weekends too. The phone rings on uh, late at night as well, and so making yourself available for those opportunities. I've never really fallen into I like to be busy just because I'm a busy person. I have that tick
Mhm.
that I've got to be doing something.
Mhm.
But I've never really been the one to fall into the trap of, oh, I gotta stay busy. I gotta start a business. No,
Mhm.
you gotta keep a little open. You gotta have time to golf. You gotta have time to do the things you love.
Yeah.
You gotta go fishing. You gotta go adventuring. You gotta have time to
Yeah.
do those things. Um,
Mhm.
eh, if they choose not to, then you question the thought of, are you working to live? Or are you living to work? And
Yeah.
then again, it just creates good, deep conversations where you can challenge the mindsets of those around you. Iron sharpens iron. It takes iron to sharpen it. And so we're there to push each other and to have those tough conversations. So
And I'd love to weave in falling in love with the service again, really loving what you're doing. Do you think that creating that little bit of space, that kind of time for adventure and family and just reflection contributes back to really loving being a firefighter?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's that's the that's the saying that goes, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and so that's no different. It's
Uh-huh.
significant. It's there with your loved ones, but it's no different in your love for the fire service or for whatever job you're doing. Having that opportunity to be away,
Hmm.
when you're in the grind and when you're really pushing, you don't have the opportunity to breathe, to bring some fresh thoughts, and you're focused, you're getting dragged down and those types of things. And
Hmm.
these opportunities to breathe and to get fresh perspective and those things, it'll not only make your love for the fire service grow, but bring new, fresh ideas to the table. Again, it just advances the work of the fire service in general, organization in general.
Hmm. Balancing yourself makes you more willing to stop and change the flat tire when you
That's right.
pass the person on the side of the road and you're in the engine, you can give more of yourself to even at work. Do you think that we can, like, how do we bring this all together? Like, what, besides the points that we've made, like what else do we need to know about really like staying in love with what we're doing, feeling balanced? Like, are there any other pieces we're missing in this conversation?
Yeah, no, I mean, it all really just ties together. And, ultimately, we all started this job for one purpose, and the job was to serve others. I don't know anybody who started the fire service to be selfish.
Hmm?
The pay is not great. The accolades really aren't that fantastic either. The work
Uh-huh.
schedule is okay, but shift work really is pretty stinky. I mean, you're up at the odd hours of the morning. Once
Hmm.
you get a taste of the adrenaline, you kind of switch a little selfish because everyone likes that rush. But we all started for one reason, and that's to serve. And my story is a little bit different. I'm a third generation firefighter.
Hmm.
My granddad founded a local volunteer fire department in the early 80s, and to this day, he's still the acting chief.
Mm, wow.
And
Hmm.
so yeah, so he's 83 years old. He doesn't get to run the calls as much. He does a lot more of the administrative duties, but
Hmm.
he's still in it for the love of it. And it wasn't too long ago I had that conversation with him, said, "Hey, why are you still doing this, Granddad? 83
Hmm.
years old, why?" And
Yeah.
his comment was, I was driving down the road one day and I thought if I got in a wreck, I would want someone to show up for me. So
Hmm.
I'm never gonna not do this because I want to do for others what I want someone to do to me. And it's a true statement, and it's something that I encourage our personnel to have. Like, why did you start?
Hmm.
And so tying all that in, it's important to take care of ourselves and our minds and our bodies to be able to perform the job that we originally signed on to do, and that is to serve. There are departments out there who are running calls nonstop. There are departments out there who may get 4 calls in 48 hours.
Hmm.
So everyone looks a little bit different. I think it's finding the balance to figure out, how do we serve? I think once we start focusing on ourselves, it's pretty easy to go down the rabbit hole of, oh, this is miserable. Oh, our job really sucks.
Hmm.
Admin just has it out for us. And
Hmm.
we've all been there. We've all gone down those rabbit holes.
Hmm.
But when you take the opportunity to truly serve from a servant's heart, those around you, it refocuses your attention.
Hmm.
You use the description, stopping the engine just to change a flat tire. There are times that you are so busy you can't. And
Hmm.
maybe you're responding calls to calls, but the difference that would make in whoever, older gentleman's day or an old lady's day, to carry out the bag of groceries for them at the grocery store, those types of things. I'm not talking just, I mean, we make a difference when we go to someone's call. When they call 911, it's the worst day of their life. They're calling
Yeah.
for a reason and they need our help. And it's important to make to serve in that capacity. But I would challenge to say it's even more important to serve in capacity when we're not responding to alarms and to 911 calls. You
Hmm.
make more impact and it's more memorable in those moments for these people beyond what we're able to comprehend. So.
Hmm. Yeah, and we have such a capacity to create kind of these really tender, loving, magical moments for
Mhm.
people because it can only get better for them. Like they are in
Yeah,
the work, they're having a really bad day. And so for what seems like, yeah, just 10 minutes changing a tire to, an elderly person is just like, oh my God, I love
yeah,
firefighters. I think that it helps kind of reinforce our stereotypes
yeah. No,
of being who
it
we
does.
are, but it also it feeds our soul too, right,
Yeah,
when we
it
do these
absolutely
things.
does. It absolutely
So
does. And I think, if my mom is out of town, or I have loved ones on the road, or my wife, or whatever the case may be, if
Mhm,
they were in a situation where they're calling me asking for help, changing
mhm,
tires, they're lost, whatever the case, I hope there's a fireman that stops and
mhm,
lends a hand in any way, because there's the old adage that, yeah, everyone hates cops and everyone loves firemen, and it's true, but I think we bring a lot of peace with us when we go. And whether I'm a firm believer that all fire trucks should be red. I'm a
mhm.
red fireman, red fire truck guy, just because
Uh-huh.
that's just the way I think it is. But
Mhm,
when those red lights and that red apparatus and that red engine turns that corner, there's hope. Um,
mhm,
and to be honest, to say that when you're struggling in a situation, you don't know the day that someone has had, you just driving back, non-emergent, back to your quarters just to get home.
mhm,
Someone could see that engine and they could find hope for the first time in their day that they haven't had. And sometimes we lose sight of that because of the stuff we go on, the stuff we see. It's a grind sometimes, and we lose track of that.
mhm.
That ability to share hope and the ability to cast love where other people don't get that opportunity. Our guys
Mhm.
are driving those engines 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week. We see people in their worst moments, and sometimes by chance we're able to lend a hand in some people's worst moments that we never thought. And I think our impact in those situations is uh, underestimated and not thought about enough. And I think which is just as servants of the public, keeping those
Mhm.
ideas, keeping those opportunities at the forefront of our mind is crucial.
How do you help people who are kind of getting bitter and jaded and, that
Mm.
crust that forms after a few years on the job? How do you as a leader kind of help them break through in your department or help them recalibrate? You tell them to take some PTO, or what's your suggestion to them?
Yeah, that's great. For one, that's what we have PTO for. We have time off for those reasons.
Hmm.
But I think, it's imperative for one to build relationships.
Hmm.
So I come from an organization that's small enough to understand that we have the opportunity to develop personal relationships with those around us and our personnel. And coming from a larger organization, maybe the chief officers don't, but battalion chiefs do and captains do. And
Hmm.
so for the leaders to start working on those relationships, developing those relationships, and developing that trust between the personnel. And
Hmm.
then after that, it's once you get to learning and knowing, it's walking and doing life with them.
Yeah.
Um, you cannot speak effectively into someone's life without having a relationship with them. And so
Yeah.
developing that relationship where you're able to honestly speak into them, we're no different than anybody. I would say probably per capita, the Roswell Fire Department is we're very busy. We see things here that a lot of places never get to see in their life. We deal with a lot of traumatic events, a lot of fires, a lot of life involved fires. We're,
Hmm.
we're busy for what we do. And so when we get these opportunities, and you can see these guys struggling with it, you got to make it a point to reach out.
Hmm.
I'm not going to ask for help. A lot of
Hmm.
us won't. A
Yeah.
lot of our people won't ask for help. But the conversations and the healing that happen at the firehouse around that kitchen table is underestimated. And so get back to the firehouse, have that conversation, talk about, hey, what else could we have done? The answer is probably nothing. We
Yeah.
did everything within our power. Start working those healing processes within them. And you can't do that again without the relationship aspect of it. You got to have relationships to do it. If we're seeing guys who are really struggling after that, we've been known here to, as administrators, it's within our right and ability to just put them on paid administrative leave.
Mm-hmm.
That takes the weight. It's not a suspension, and we have to explain it because everyone's like, "Oh, the paid admin leave. Oh, what'd you do wrong?" This isn't
Hmm.
a suspension. This is a gift.
Hmm.
Take it and use it for what it's for. And
Yeah.
so, just an example for us here in 2019. We had a firework explosion at a bunker here
Hmm.
locally. Our guys, for many years and for no choice of our own, is what we always adapted and learned growing up at the fire department is what you did. And you did the fireworks show every 4th of July.
Hmm.
They were pre-wiring fireworks when one of the E-matches went and it exploded with 11 of our guys inside.
Wow.
Yeah, and so a lot of our guys sustained some burns, and unfortunately, two of our guys experienced critical burns. One
Hmm.
ended up living, and
Hmm.
we lost one of our own. And
Hmm.
out of a situation maybe we should have never been in to begin with.
Hmm.
And so those are the hard ones. A couple years ago, we had a gentleman that used to work for us, was very well known by the crews, was very well liked by everybody, was
Hmm.
involved in a very tragic accident in town, and
Hmm.
our guys were responsible for extricating a lifeless body. And
Hmm.
so when it comes to those crucial moments, baby calls, those types of things, don't,
Hmm.
as administrators, don't be afraid to use paid administrative leave to say, I see you, I value you, go have some time off. You don't
Yep.
have to worry about burning your own vacation, don't worry about your own hours. We're
Yep.
going to take care of you. That's within our ability to do, and that's within our control. And leveraging that ability to send them help is key. Not everyone's going to talk to a counselor.
Yeah.
Not anyone's going to do all those things, but we can at least let them go. We try not to send them alone.
Yeah.
It's really bad to send them alone. So
Hmm.
if we can send them with some friends, other men from the other men and women from the fire service or their spouse or whatever the case is, get them with someone that loves and cares for them
Yeah.
to really rally around them. And so um, that's this. Yeah, it's probably where I'd go with that. Just don't go get help. Take some time off. Use PTO if you want, but for the administrators that watch this, don't be afraid to use PTO or the paid administrative leave. Put them off on your dime.
Yeah.
And that not only helps them, but it also shows their worth and their value. That
Yeah.
as the organization, you're willing to take I'm willing to take uh, the cost of that as an organization in terms of the overtime and backfill. I'm not going to put that on you. We're going to take that response. It shows how much you value them and how much they're worth to you. And I think it's a win all the way around in that regard.
Hmm. That's a great strategy. And I do think that is one of the critical relationships is between the officer on duty
Mhm,
and then his crew, because they, he or she they know the personalities of the people they're working with, and they know when something is up.
mhm.
And it's small enough usually at that point. And I've talked with other guests about that, of like, they can nip it in the bud of
That's right.
just saying, I see you, like, what's up, and instead of just glossing over and in favor of having to get other things done. So
Yeah, that's right.
taking it on your nickel, it's a
Yeah.
big demonstration of that you
It,
matter to the department,
That's right. There are some organizations that probably have the ability to think, oh, here's the end of the year stipend. Here's your Christmas bonus.
Mhm.
We don't. That's not our budget, and we don't have the funds to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so while we can't reward in those ways, but we can sure figure out and be innovative in our ideas to figure out other ways to take care of our personnel. And we've just
Hmm.
learned here that you know what, when it's needed, and I don't want the added stress on them to use their own leave. We're
Hmm.
going to take it on our nickel. It's on us on this one. We love you. Get out of here and go get some peace of mind. So
Yeah, nice. Have you guys had much luck with peer support? How do you find that kind of zippering into this?
that's a great question. We have started venturing into peer support within the last year.
Hmm.
A lot of those critical incidents that I just previously spoke about have made us realize like, ooh, we really need something in place.
Hmm.
We've been working alongside a local department about 70 miles south of us. They have a really good program that has been set up for a number of years. And so we're
Hmm.
modeling it after that.
Hmm.
What we're trying to work towards is peer support within just the stations. You know, if we can train our company officers at the level of a good peer support,
Hmm.
um, then those conversations are going to happen around the table.
Yeah.
Um, we've had really good luck with our peer programs and in terms of bringing them in the past, and our individuals are really open to having those conversations. I think it's a personal mission of mine one of these days to have peer support dogs within the
Mm.
organization. We've brought in peer support dogs in the past. We have a local resource here that does peer support. Peer support. It's really child support within the court system. And
Hmm.
these dogs come into the courts, and when kids are involved in these court cases or their parents are and they're getting drug into these dogs are there to love
Hmm.
on and to help. Talk about a successful program. And so we have that resource that we've tapped into a couple times to say, hey, can you guys, we call them the CASA dogs because that's corn appointed special advocates is what I believe is what it's considered, but they
Hmm.
do the courts. And so we'll call the CASA dogs in, and the CASA comes in and they bring their pups, and you'd be surprised how often, you know, those walls will drop and you start loving on a Labrador in front of you and they're licking on you. Those walls drop and
Hmm.
you're able to talk and to feel openly, and
Yeah.
it creates that safe. So we're working on truly developing something for us. We're getting some progress, and we've been able to send probably close to 15 individuals off to some trainings. And so we have that opportunity. On the
Hmm.
other side of our peer support program, we have We have a group of chaplains here locally
Mhm.
that are really passionate about serving. And what we have found is we've tried to get our chaplains in a range of ages that they can
Mm.
relate to most of the members. And so
Mhm.
we've got some young pastors on that chaplaincy program that can really relate to the young guys.
Mhm.
And that helps. It helps open up. You don't want to go to someone that at the end of the day, you don't want to go. I mean, you're facing some hard times. You don't want to hear, oh, I'm holier than thou. This is the way it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what you want to hear. You want someone to be real and to be authentic and to relate with you. And so
Mhm.
we've been kind of picky. And with the help of the individual who leads the chaplain program, he's a minister here in town. He has a past experience of developing these teams. He's done a really good job
Mhm.
and handpicking, individuals who will and can relate to us. And
Mhm.
that program is still it's still in its infancy stage, and so but we are
Mm,
seeing
okay.
some progress.
Cool.
I walked in the station the other day and we had chaplain cooking guys lunch.
Oh,
And it's like, I
wow.
was like, what are you doing? He's like, well, they had to go on a call. I figured
Uh-huh.
I'm here to serve, so I'm just going to cook their lunch. And he did. He
Uh-huh.
cooked their lunch, and
Uh-huh.
those guys were so appreciative. And so they're in the stations building those relationships, and
Yeah.
so I'm excited to watch it blossom and to grow and to figure out what that turns out to as well.
Yeah, that's another great resource. Cool. I always like to leave our viewers with one tool or resource to kind of continue their knowledge. What do you have for us today that you would recommend as that resource?
Yeah, so I read a book years ago, and this goes back to my stance on excellence and why excellence matters. It's written by a gentleman named Horst Schulze. Horst
Hmm.
Schulze was the COO of the Ritz-Carlton Company. He's not involved in the emergency field whatsoever. He is involved in hospitality and
Mm.
the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group and those things. The name of the book is Excellence Wins: A
Mm.
No-Nonsense Guide to Becoming the Best in a World of Compromise. Um,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
so reading this and hearing his views and standpoints on why excellence matters, and he's talking about excellence matters in terms of bellboys and people who open up doors and why those things matter at the lowest level. But you can easily take that and apply to an emergency service where it says the firemen, the drivers, the lieutenants, captains, chief officers, why excellence matters. And at the end of the day, excellence wins. You want to win over hearts, do it with excellence. You have to have excellence
Hmm.
embedded in your heart and in your mind to win at anything. And so
Yeah.
it's not fire related, but it is a book that made a drastic impact on my life. And I
Hmm.
model a lot of my stuff after what this book had to teach me. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's easy to forget that in a big urban fire department,
mhm,
because experience is currency, right? When
that's right.
someone you leave them with a good experience of you, they're never going to forget that.
That's
And
right.
that,
That's exactly right.
and then they tell their friends, "Oh yeah, I like Roswell Fire Department,
That's
like
right.
they're my buds,
That's
and
right. That's exactly right. We try to consider every call we run on as PR. It's public
yeah.
relations.
Hmm.
And if we're at the grocery store, it's PR. If we're going on a structure fire, it's PR. If we're going on a routine medical or public sys, it's PR. And so
Hmm.
doing all those things with excellence is going to make an impact. And then when you need a new fire station and you have to go out to bond, or you need fire trucks and you're going to put them on bond, or whatever the case is, you ask the community for their vote to raise taxes. Well,
Hmm.
guess what? Excellence is going to win, and they're going to remember what service they were provided, and they're
Yeah.
going to vote yes. And so it
Hmm.
ties into that whole the whole scheme of the fire service and getting a community program developed. And so
Hmm.
it's key and it's important. So
Yeah. And the importance of, if you don't feel connected to the department you're working for,
that's
to
right.
try and maybe reevaluate why that is. Like maybe you
Yep,
just would be better off at a different form, a smaller one, a bigger one, whatever.
that's right.
But yeah, that your attitude reflects into the community. Is there anything else we haven't touched on today that you kind of want
No,
to emphasize with our viewers?
I think that's it. Do all things with excellence.
Hmm.
Strive for greatness. Shoot for the moon. I
Hmm.
mean the saying is shoot for the moon. If you miss, you fall upon the stars. But
Hmm.
don't settle. That-
Hmm.
Don't settle for less. I think excellence will get you to the place where you need, but don't settle for less in the process of getting to the top. So
Hmm.
it'll be worth it, and you won't look back with regret.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Chief Fuller, for sharing your insights with us. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to future opportunities. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. So, and thank you to our community members. We can't do without you. If you're still with us, you're incredible. Thanks for hanging in here for the end of the conversation. And as always, we are open to your feedback. If you have any comments or questions for us, my door is always open to you. Email me at info@firepowerx.com. And as always, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.